complicated. Pre-COVID, when I thought about collecting my signatures, I was willing, ready, and able to go door knocking, but then I was precluded from doing so, and for good reasons, to protect the health of our community. And I want to be able to knock on doors. I want to be able to introduce myself to everyone in the community. And it makes me nervous that because of what's happening with COVID, I might not be able to do that face to face in a way that really allows people to see me for who I am, to understand where I'm coming from. And social media is great, but there's always the barrier of the screen. And I think there's just something really special about when you're able to be in person with someone and have a conversation. So that makes me nervous that I won't be able to reach everyone as originally intended. And then I think relatedly is that I don't want someone else to tell my story for me. And so in the absence of being able to have those conversations myself, we have to be mindful of whenever we have diversity, that also means that there's prejudice and discrimination too. And so I would hate for someone to make an assumption about me just based off what they see, whatever it is that they see, and not allow me to have the opportunity to engage in a conversation with them and let them know who I am authentically and transparently.
You're killing right now. This is no, seriously. To lighten it up for a little bit, tell me about Mother's Day. Tomorrow will be Mother's Day. What is the plan? How are we gonna celebrate Mom? Give me some insight. Bring me into the personal side of Brandy Fluker Oakley.
Yeah, definitely. So my mom knows this and my close friends know this. I love a good surprise. Like, I love to surprise people, and to just brighten their day in some way. My mother could care less about surprises, so it's probably been decades of me unnecessarily surprising her. But for this particular Mother's Day, I just want to give her a day of rest. When I made the decision after prayer and wise counsel to run for office, some people have a spouse or a partner that they have to consult. I had to consult my mom, right?
Absolutely.
Because she is my family.
Absolutely.
And she has just stepped up in ways going above and beyond to make sure that I'm eating and that I take a break from making phone calls, or that I take a break from this community meeting, to make sure that I'm well fed, to make sure that I have a little bit of me time. And so that means she's done the lion's share of the cooking over the last 2 months or so. And so I want to be able to pay it forward for her and just allow her to have a day of home pampering where she can just relax in bed, kick her feet up, give her a little bell. So whatever she needs, she can ring it and I'm just go to and fro. So sorry to my campaign team. I am taking tomorrow off just to honor this woman. Just
as you should, as you should.
One day. And then hopefully when we're able to travel, I would love to take her on a trip somewhere, but we'll see how that goes in time.
I love that. Is there a restaurant in particular in the district that you're looking forward to maybe having takeout from over the next week or so? Is there something that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I feel like we can safely say we love bread and Pat's Pizza. So and they're both in Lower Mills, and we actually support all the businesses down there in Lower Mills throughout Mattapan Square, and obviously in Milton as well. But I have to transparently say, in 14 days, I ordered bread 4 times, and I was like, I need to take a break from bread.
I need to fall back.
I was like, I need to take a break from bread. And then Pat's actually has amazing sandwiches, food, and other items as well that we really enjoy. Their subs are amazing. So I'll probably spoil her a little bit and order takeout 2 or 3 times next week.
You got to. Shout out to the local businesses in District 12. We just want to make sure that you all are also feeling the love and being supported during this time. I just want to break it up a little bit. I know we've been rolling heavy, but for those who want to get involved in the campaign, you have an opportunity. It would be ideal. If you could, in the kindness of your heart and, with your resources, commit to making a donation at this time. It does not matter how small it is. Anything that you are able to give and willing to give, the campaign is more than willing to accept. And it will be put toward good use during this time. Also, your time, talent, treasure. You may not have the financial means to contribute in that way, but if you want to phone bank, if you want to stuff envelopes, there are more than enough opportunities for you to dive in. So just hit us on the chat. We'll be able to share a few more things as we get to the end of the conversation. But donating your time is just as valuable as any dollars that you're going to share. Before we conclude, as we continue, I know we have a little bit more time, but I just want to throw that out there for anyone who needed to jump off, people who are engaging with us. Tell me something about the district that motivated you to run. When you were thinking, when you were early kind of making your consideration, you were looking at the landscape, what were, you already kind of alluded to some of the drivers, but what was like that one thing in particular that you were like, you know what, I can do this. I'm supposed to do this right now. Like, what was that tug? What was that tipping point moment where you were like, you know what, I'm going to go in right now?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So one thing I think of is, you mentioned my desire to actually be conscious about my inclusion. I think sometimes as leaders, we only go where we're comfortable, and we're not necessarily open to going to places where we might be least comfortable. And when I think about the Suffolk 12th in particular, there are some parts of this district that are in need of extra TLC, if you will, that they haven't necessarily received. And I think there's also an opportunity to, instead of having communities pitted against one another, think about how is it that we can come together in order to get the resources that we need in order to thrive. And I think because I don't come to this work with a scarcity mindset, meaning either or thinking, I come to this work assets-based, thinking about everyone in this community, all that we bring to the table. And I think there's a unique opportunity to lead with that lens and lead with that frame of what do we already have that we can build upon, as opposed to having a deficit based mindset in the work that we do at the State House.
Give me one of the examples where you are going to bridge the gap between the new District 12 and what has been in the 12th district. I know we have multi-generations there. I know we have diversity of thought, socioeconomic background, representation. What does it look like to build that bridge, to collaborate, to have a coalition of people where people feel like you are the one bringing them together, convening them? What does that look like through the campaign and then during your time at the State House?
Yeah, so I can think of two particular issues that come to mind, if I may share both of them. One is related to how we recover from COVID-19. It has been made abundantly clear that communities of color are disproportionately impacted by this virus. In Boston alone, African Americans make up 25% of the population, yet we are 42% of COVID cases. And this is based on the data that we know today. There are so many people that have not been tested given the lack of availability in testing. So that number could actually be much higher. And then when we look at what's happening across the nation, particularly with African Americans, 1/3 of COVID cases are by people who identify as African American. And in some cities, African Americans make up 50% of the COVID fatalities. Locally, in this district in particular, we have some of the highest rates of COVID between the Black and the Latinx community. In particular, in Mattapan, most recent data said that we had 48.2% folks who had tested positive for COVID. And then in East Boston, there was 47.2%. And then Dorchester and Hyde Park tied at about 42%. So knowing that this district is made up of Mattapan, Dorchester, Hyde Park, and Milton, there's going to be work that has to be done to make sure that those communities thrive when we come out of COVID. There have been systemic inequities and health disparities that existed pre-COVID, and they are continuing to persist, making people of color at higher risk. And as state rep, I want to make sure that our community health centers receive all the funding that they need. My mother receives her medical care at a community health center, so I understand how important they are to the community to make sure that folks have the resources that they need to better their health. And we have to be able to tackle the disparities related to COVID and all those pre-existing conditions, whether it be asthma, heart disease, diabetes. For those of us in the African American community, these diseases are all too familiar for us, and we have to make sure that we have the resources we need in order to tackle them. And I want to make sure that we prioritize testing in our most vulnerable populations, and also the contact tracing as well. It's no surprise, it's projected that for this year's budget, which is slated to end in early June, that we as a Commonwealth are going to lose about $700 million in tax revenue. And by the time we go into next fiscal year, it could even be into the billions. And that's why I want to make sure that we can protect and prevent major cuts into the programs and services that our community holds near and dear to our hearts, that keep us healthy and safe day to day.
I'm learning so much listening to you. I mean, these are things that are top of mind. These are things you're thinking about. But to hear those staggering figures and the fact that you're knowledgeable of this stuff like this, it really kind of puts a different lens and perspective on it, because you've heard, and I think it's been tough because we all are approaching grief in a different way right now. There are so many of us who are used to being in community, and you think of District 12, you think of how tight-knit a community you have in your Dorchester, in your Mattapan, and parts of Milton. And for us not to be able to engage, and for you to look on social media and find out from a family member or a friend that someone else has been directly impacted by this, like, what does it look like for us to create a safe space for community to kind of reacclimate ourselves with some level of normalcy after this? Like, what do you think that looks like? How are you envisioning us moving past life after COVID, especially in the district?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. And particularly for communities of color and also communities from immigrant backgrounds, the value of community is very, very strong, no matter what color you are. I know there are so many who are devastated that they can't actually go visit and be with their mother tomorrow on Mother's Day. And the truth of the matter is, we have to find a way that we're still honoring and respecting whatever, the CDC guidelines are and health guidelines, and then try to figure out what can we do that keeps us safe and connected. I think the beauty of COVID, if we can try to find a silver lining in all of this devastation, is that people have been more intentional about checking in on one another. You've seen so many more acts of kindness. You've seen people actually having to take a and not think about self, but think about others, and find a way to meet that need of your senior neighbor who might need grocery shopping, or who might need you to run to the pharmacy and pick up their prescription, or something else, where I think before it was so easy for us to do business as usual. And I also innovate in a lot of ways, and I know many people want to return to business as usual. But what I'm really hoping is we think about what learnings from this COVID pandemic can we take